Still with me with the common sense, as always, Tom Slater, editor of Spiked Online. Thanks so much again for joining us today. We've just been talking about that horrific loss of life in that super yacht sinking Mike Lynch over early hours yesterday morning. But I mean, lots of news coming in from overseas about what is going on. Joe Biden and his goodbye is basically his 5 months before he actually leaves office next January. His goodbye to the Democratic National Congress. People shouting, "We love you, Joe," holding up signs, of course, all identical, very, very well made signs. Not at all, you know, it's all has to look good for the cameras. Very spontaneously.
I'm sure they made those at home.
Made it while working from home. He did endorse Kamala Harris. Of course he did. We were going to play some clips, and we realised that actually the clips were really so dull. It really wasn't worth doing, and we like our audience, so we didn't do it. But what do you make of the move to have Kamala Harris on the ticket?
Well, on the one hand, it's a grubby business, isn't it? And you know they had gone through
grubby business.
Yeah, they had gone through their primary process. They had the Democratic base had endorsed Biden, and then of course as a result of this basically coup at the last minute, they got rid of him. I don't think there'll be many people in the sort of Democratic voting column who are going to be that distraught about this prospect. I think everyone realised that the game was up when they had that debate and he could barely string a sentence together and was staring into the middle distance and all the rest of it.
I mean, it was just excruciating.
It was, but the reason it went on for as long as it did was because no one was really convinced there was a plan B, even with Kamala Harris. I mean, she was widely seen as really not impressing in that particular role.
A few months ago, Biden's team were trying to work out how they could oust her as the VP.
And there wasn't this idea that she was the kind of queen over the water. That's just been, you know, in retrospect, that narrative has been spun. And it shows how little faith the broader Democratic establishment had in Harris, that they waited as long as they did. So it's interesting now everything's turned on a dime. Suddenly the narrative is she's brilliant, she's always been brilliant. We're so excited about this. But
she's been running all the things that have been going well, but definitely wasn't border czar, the immigration issue from Mexico, not an issue. But what was interesting is Joe Biden was talking an awful lot about his achievements and then, and Kamala Harris. There's no doubt at all, his wife, they are still furious about this. They are absolutely furious.
And he's wanted to be, you know, president for longer than most people have been alive. So it's the sort of thing where...
Doesn't he stood like 5 times
Absolutely. It's this, so he finally gets his moment and the second term is snatched away from him. But again, I'm amazed that it was never part of the deal that he was just going to do one term and then kind of pass the baton, if not onto Harris and someone else.
That was the whole point. Was he was going to be it was all going to be middle of the road, nice bit of calm after the Trump years, and then of course the exact opposite as they turned sort of radical progressive woke politics on steroids. They've got only themselves to blame. I still think, I mean, the polls are ahead for Kamala Harris in some of the key battleground states. I still think once people actually have to hear her and see more of her and that ridiculous smile and laugh and she's, I don't know, far be it from me to criticise, but she's completely incoherent. And I don't think I'm a woman of colour is necessarily a qualification for the office. As I say, it shouldn't be a disqualification. But the word salad stuff is...
The word salad stuff is amazing. There's some amazing clips. Every kind of spiel she goes on, it's like she's about 3 or 4 glasses of Chablis deep and she's just winging it all the time, talking about, you know, Russia is a country that's in Europe that invaded Ukraine, which is another country.
But it's like someone has just put that in a briefing note for her.
Yeah, and even then just kind of half understood in a slightly drunk, foggy haze. It's amazing.
No, I'm really intrigued. I cannot wait to see it. I mean, if I was less sane, I would stay up and watch it overnight. But I know that's something I will record there, but when they do that debate, her and Trump, that's going to be an absolute, you know, clincher for one of them, and we're going to wait and see what happens there. It's going to be very entertaining. Let's talk about these nearly 2,000 prisoners to be released on a single day. This is about basically prisons were overcrowded. We knew that. That's an ongoing issue. That's actually was happening, you know, back in the early days of Cameron, for goodness sake. We don't send too many people to jail, by the way. We actually imprison fewer people per crime committed than most other European countries. This is one of those jokes that we imprison too many people. No, we don't imprison enough people soon enough and for long enough. That's why we have all this repeat offending. But prisons are overcrowded. Had a load of people, as we just heard, this huge number of people, 1,165 who've been arrested, 500 odd who've been charged, a number of people already behind bars before having pleaded guilty for rioting charges. And now we've got nowhere to put them, so we're going to have to let a load of people out. This lot, they're going to be released on a single day away next month, nearly 2,000 of them, serving just 40% of their sentence, sentenced to under 5 years. The month after, it's going to be people sentenced over 5 years. And that, you know, they'll say it's not violent people and not, you know, rapists, but you'd have committed some pretty serious crimes if you're in prison for 5 years. And
it's, how did we ever get into this state? And I know we can't lay the blame at Keir Starmer necessarily, but why the fact that the response, it's very technocrat brain, isn't it? It's like, well, we haven't got the room, so let's just let a bunch of people out early. I understand that we're reaching this crisis point, but at the same time, why were we not building out the prison estate if that's what was necessary? Why were we not trying to make sure that this didn't happen? Problems like this do not just suddenly appear.
No. I mean, do you think Labour will actually start building the prisons? I mean, they're, you know, quite right to criticise Tories. This is their mistake. But you know, are they going to do that when given their prisons minister, Lord Timpson, he's made it really clear that he doesn't think that, you know, more people should go to prison. He thinks fewer people should go to prison. And I do wonder what will happen when, say, one of those people who's been let out commits some other violent, maybe even more heinous crime than they were put inside for in the first place, and people look at the government and they look at what James Simpson has said previously, and they think to themselves, what is going on? And that would be a real test for Keir Starmer when something like that happens, I think. Indeed, indeed. Look, we're going to be talking about working from home again, and I'm going to talk about it with Robert Jenrick, the former Tory government minister. He's now a leadership candidate in just a few moments, so I want to move on from that and talk about just the strikes, though. We've had a whole load of strikes settled. The junior doctors, ASLEF train drivers, 22% for doctors, 14.25% for over 3 years for the train drivers. What a surprise when, after ASLEF do that deal and then announced 48 hours later another strike of the East Coast Main Line, but RMT and other rail unions have gone, well, we'd like that for the signal operators and the train guards, and teachers' unions are going to be looking at that, aren't they? The prison officers' union, everyone's going to be going, nurses probably look at the doctor's salary going, well, how come you're getting that and we got this? We've all had the same energy costs going up and inflationary costs in the supermarket. Are we just at the start of yet another round of strikes? Could well be the case. I mean, it's worth saying that I believe the ASLEF strike, which fell at a very bad time for the Labour government, made it look very bad, that was a separate dispute as opposed to the more straightforward general dispute over train drivers' pay. They probably could have resolved both at the same time. But at the same time, it's also, these are unions doing what they're supposed to do, which is to represent their members. I think it's also worth remembering that really, even though we've had a kind of uptick in strike action over the course of recent years, it's a kind of historic low. So people tend to kind of reach for, it's like the winter of discontent. It's nothing like that. But it is embarrassing for Keir Starmer, not least because I think he wanted to kind of pretend that as soon as a Labour government entered the room, suddenly we're around everyone's going to relax. But also, it was all about talking. No, it wasn't. It was about huge wadges of cash, and it's our cash. Yeah. But that was a straight-up, you know, misrepresentation of what was going to happen. Of course there were still going to be these disputes. Of course they were going to try their hand again. That's what they are elected to do, to fight on behalf of their members, to get more pay. That's the point of a trade union, better pay, better working conditions. So I think, again, it's just the very simplistic picture that Starmer tried to paint of how Labour would deal with all of these different disputes and crises is now colliding with reality. Yeah, absolutely. Can I talk to you about another story? This is not one of the biggest stories of the day, but I do feel the need. You'll know I could do 3 hours on bins every single day if it was up to me, and that's what I would do. But I could get the people in my house, not my fact, we live in a shared block, get anybody to actually just put the right stuff in the right bin so the bin men will actually collect it. I can't even tell you. Hello, Viola, how are you? I'm sure I'll be calling you later. But almost 70% of councils are now charging homeowners to dispose of garden waste. Again, what, don't they want us to have gardens? I thought they did. And some are making households to sort their rubbish into as many as 10 bins. This is new research from the Taxpayers Alliance Pressure Group. I mean, we just have to do 2 sets of bins. Well, garden waste, recyclable, and most of it's not recycled, by the way, and then the black bin for everything else. I don't do the food, can't be doing it. The foxes eat it all anyway. On average, there are 4 for collection last year, but 56 councils had 6 or more, and in one council, you got 10 bins per household. How does that work? I mean, I'm sorry, I would have a heart attack. I would literally have to put me in the funny farm if I had to separate stuff into 10 different bins. It's insane. Where do they put all of these bins? Who's got enough room for all of these? But also, how many different lorries are collecting it? Because as far as I can understand from the guys who've got it, all goes to the same place. This is the other thing. It's such a load of nonsense. It all goes to landfill anyway. It's so strange. And also, I just don't know why people accept a situation where you're being kind of compelled or cajoled into spending so much of your time rifling through your own rubbish. I know. You know, it makes you want. You can understand why people just become cynical and chuck it all in just the black bins. Exactly. No, exactly. You know. I would vote on this alone. This is a single issue. Yeah. I'm a single issue voter. How many bins do I have to have?